So, it happened. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Kenji Martial Arts. I wish you all very happy holidays and a very happy new year to come. Now, once again, I'm a little late to the punch, unintended, but there's something that I feel really needs addressing. Now, for those of you who aren't caught up, where the hell have you been for the past few months? It's literally all martial arts YouTube's been talking about at this point. Well, this and us. Anyways, to catch you up, a gentleman from South Korea named dkyoo is a martial arts instructor. He has a martial arts group called Warfare Combat System. I personally would have called it something far more dramatic, but that's just me. And DK is considered to be a very popular YouTuber. Now, long story short, he was due to fight a MMA fighter from China called Zhu. I really hope I didn't butcher his name. Now, Zhu is famous, or infamous, depending on your point of view, for beating down fake so-called martial arts masters. But because of a few reasons which we won't get into, Zhu was unable to make the event to fight dkyoo. So there was a little bit of umming and ahhing for a little while, but then dkyoo eventually agreed to fight a boxing match against a man called Bradleyscott. Now, Bradley is a retired MMA fighter from the UFC from the UK, and their fight aired quite recently. Now, before people start raging down in the comments and get the wrong idea, this is not a video about the fight itself, not about the events. I'm not here to criticise anyone's technique or performance or anything like that. Seriously though, after I watched the fight and posted a picture on my Instagram, the comment section just got flooded with things that were distasteful. Bloody hell, people. Think and remember the context before you comment. Now that's out of the way, let me talk about what I want to talk about. Now, personally, I think this event is a big lesson for martial artists everywhere. Whether combat sport, traditional, combatives, or self-defense focused, we can all learn something from this. Now, something that the practical martial arts community and the combat sports community has been preaching literally forever is that it is absolutely key in your training to learn how to fight against a non-compliant opponent and pressure test your techniques, regardless of art or skill level. It's a way to make sure that when push comes to shove, that we can actually use the techniques that we are drilling in class all the time, and that we can physically cope with the mental pressure. When we are pressured in these sorts of situations in real life, there's typically three responses from our brain: fight, flight, or freeze. Fight if necessary, but in all honesty, fighting should always be the last option. So I hope you can see the irony in me listing this one first. Flight, get out of there as soon as humanly possible. Get away from the danger and get to safety. But freezing, freezing is the worst possible option. When the adrenaline dump hits, tunnel vision sets in, and fine motor skills go out the window. You're gonna have a very bad time. And unfortunately, freezing is the reality. It can actually happen to anyone. Now, this is a little bit on real world violence dynamics. There are much better people at explaining and teaching this, so this is just a generic overview of the three responses. But the idea that I'm trying to get at is that you can overcome this freezing response, or at least minimize it, so you can effectively deal with the danger in front of you. But how do you do this? How do you get used to this kind of pressure? You spar, you learn, and you pressure test. Learn what it is like to be under this pressure. Start sparring small amounts at a time if you're not used to it already. Make sure it's done in a controlled, suitable environment so you don't injure yourself every time you go for a sparring session. A part of self-protection training is to ensure that you are able to live happily for as long as humanly possible. So going into a sparring session every time and leaving with brain trauma is not the smartest idea for your own self-survival. Now, dkyoo, who I suppose people would categorise as a modern traditionalist, he agreed to the boxing match. Fantastic. He went through his own training. Now, I can't specifically comment on what he did, but in the end he did go up against a much more experienced fighter than him. Honestly, fantastic. Good for him. There's a lot online, especially if you're a fan of the McDojo Life channel like I am, where you can see so many martial artists just making fools out of themselves. They try doing all sorts of magician voodoo-y stuff which seems to work on their super compliant partners. That stuff will never work in sparring, pressure testing, scenario training, let alone real life, quite frankly, because what they're doing doesn't work. Plain and simple. The introduction in any art of pressure testing and sparring and scenario training can make any art work. Even Aikido, despite the amount of stigma it gets online. Trust me, it does work. But with all of it, it has to be some form of pressure, non-compliance. The uke can't just go along with everything that you're doing. There always has to be pressure. Now, in just drilling techniques, it doesn't have to be always pressured. You know, you have to learn how to do the techniques properly. I know a fair few judo throws, but only some of them will work in certain situations. It's all dependent on different balances and where they are, their posture, what grips you have. So if you get used to the pressure, you will be able to learn what throws or sweeps will work where in a judo match. Without this pressure, martial artists, quite frankly, will never ever learn or improve. And that goes doubly so for traditional martial artists, where competition isn't always the main objective. Now, the problem with extreme traditionalists is that you always hear the argument that, oh, sparring challenges are displays of boasting and arrogance. Hell no. They are a challenge to oneself, and not just to make sure that their techniques can work in a pressurized situation, be it consensual violence in a ring or a mat, or non-consensual violence outside in the street or in your own home. If you can cope with the pressure, you can make it work. So for dkyoo, I really hope that he looks at this as a very positive experience where he can learn and improve. Despite the fact that he was beaten on points, he can make the most of the situation, which is what every martial artist should be doing. Break down, analyze and improve, which is always helpful when you've got a super important training diary like the Karate Journal by the legend that is Sensei Les Booker. Links down below. So maybe to improve his boxing skills could be dkyoo's New Year's resolution. And of course, massive respect to Bradley Scott, who was an absolute gentleman throughout the entire fight. Very tactical and didn't just start throwing in unnecessary bombs and try and knock dkyoo out flat. Quite interesting. In a video after the fight, Bradley said that every single time that dkyoo clinched up, Bradley took the opportunity just to lean over a little bit, look outside the ring and at the judges' scorecards, so he could see who was in the lead. Now honestly, that is an absolutely genius tactic. You can see how well you're doing, and if you need to change the pace of the fight or change your tactics at all. If you want a really good video about the fight, I recommend checking out Ramsey Dewey's video, link down below. Spoiler warning, I literally agree with everything that he says, considering he is a combat sports expert. What was probably not a smart thing to do was the fact that both fighters were injured before the fight itself, yet they went ahead and did the fight anyway. Bradley was injured in a car accident, I believe, and he was picking up pieces of glass from his face. Ouch. And DK had a training injury from his shoulder or his neck, I believe. I don't know what it was specifically. But hey, that's up to them. They knew the risks and they still put on a show. But to everyone going on about beef between these two, oh my god. Stop. If you watch the Fight Bible's Instagram story after the fight, you could see that Brad and dkyoo were having a pint after the fight together. Even though Brad was a bit jet lagged and falling asleep, they were still drinking together. Anyway, that's all from me for today. I hope you enjoyed. Please like, comment, only if it's civil. I do not want to have to start deleting unsavory posts again. Share the video, subscribe, hit me up on my socials, and of course, I wish you all the best with your training. Please eat many mince pies over this period. Take care.